Good evening and welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephania Cox. Here are today's top stories. Over 100 nations back a probe into the World Health Organization and the origin of the CCP virus. But it may be difficult to carry out because of the Chinese regime's order to destroy evidence in Wuhan. The FBI now has greater insight on a terrorist after unlocking the iPhone of a man who killed 3 sailors at a naval base. The U.S. Attorney General says the FBI cracked the phone's encryption after Apple refused to do it. Virus cases in the U.S. dropped by 8%, and almost all 50 states' lockdowns start easing up. But total virus cases still hover at around 1.5 million. Lockdowns continue for the 2 hardest hit states in the nation, but business owners are taking their risks to reopen. One in New Jersey says whatever the consequences there may be, it's worth it. And Moderna said it has made good progress toward developing a vaccine. The company will soon start to conduct large-scale clinical trials. Over 100 nations support a push to investigate the World Health Organization and the origin of the coronavirus, or CCP virus. The probe would take a look at the WHO's response to the outbreak. Australia and the EU are leading the charge.
A coalition of over 100 nations is calling for an independent probe into the World Health Organization and the origin of the CCP virus. U.S. Health Secretary Alex Azar said the WHO failed to obtain the information the world needed, costing many lives.
We saw that WHO failed at its core mission of information sharing and transparency when member states do not act in good faith. This cannot ever happen again.
The probe calls for a closer look at the WHO's contribution to UN efforts and its actions and timelines pertaining to the pandemic. NTD's China analyst Tang Jingyuan says it's nearly impossible to investigate the origin of the virus because the Chinese regime has destroyed the evidence.
First of all, the Wuhan South China seafood market is a very important place that is believed to be the source of the virus. But the original scene, a lot of original data already has been destroyed.
In February, the People's Liberation Army's top expert in biological warfare, a Major General Chen Wei, was dispatched to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Tang said it indicates the lab has a military background.
According to the CCP's usual practice, it will not surprise me at all when they want to conceal some information related to the source of the virus, to fabricate or forge something.
The leader of China's Communist Party, Xi Jinping, pledged $2 billion over the next 2 years to developing countries to aid their virus response. Yet Tang says it's the CCP's way of bribing countries that may be involved in the investigation.
The FBI cracked the iPhone encryption of the Saudi Air Force trainee who killed 3 American sailors at a U.S. naval base in Florida in December. The agency found evidence linking him to al-Qaeda.
The FBI cracked the iPhone encryption of the terrorist who killed 3 American sailors and wounded 8 other people in a December attack. The U.S. Attorney General revealed the findings on Monday. The data obtained reveal al-Qaeda links. The Justice Department and FBI succeeded in unlocking the shooter's iPhone after Apple declined to assist.
It was clear at the time that the phones were likely to contain very important information. Indeed, al-Shamrani attempted to destroy both of the phones, even going so far as to disengage from the gunfight long enough to fire a bullet into one of the phones.
21-year-old Mohammed Saeed al-Shamrani came to the U.S. as a Royal Saudi Air Force trainee. He was working at a U.S. naval base as part of a training program designed to foster links with foreign allies. He was killed by law enforcement during the attack. Attorney General Barr said the information obtained from the phones is invaluable.
The phones contained information previously unknown to us that definitively establishes al-Shamrani's significant ties to al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, not only before the attack, but before he even arrived in the United States.
He also called on Congress to force Apple and other tech companies to help law enforcement agencies get through encryption during criminal investigations. Prior to the shooting spree, the shooter posted criticism of U.S. wars and quoted slain al-Qaeda terrorist leader Osama bin Laden on social media.
Attorney General William Barr also said today that he doesn't expect there to be a criminal investigation into former President Obama and former Vice President Biden. Barr made his remarks during an unrelated press conference. He said it's unlikely that the Justice Department would investigate the two former officials as part of Attorney John Durham's probe into the origins of the Russia investigation. The Attorney General said he based his statement on the information already available. And as the country begins to reemerge from life in lockdown, one thing is crucial to combating the pandemic: finding an effective vaccine. One company says it could be a step closer to protecting people from the virus.
As the world works to find a safe and effective COVID-19 vaccine, manufacturer Moderna says it is seeing promising results in human trials.
These are really good news for us and everybody that's been watching for this day.
The biotech company, in partnership with the National Institutes of Health, measured antibodies in 8 people it vaccinated, and all 8 developed neutralizing antibodies.
These antibodies were proven to be able to block the ability of the virus to infect cells. We are already seeing an immune response at the level of people who've been infected with this virus and are believed now not to be susceptible to further disease.
It's encouraging, but we still don't know if people who have been infected with the virus are immune from it in the future. So it's not clear whether vaccination will provide total immunity. So far, Moderna has vaccinated between 60 and 100 participants. Starting in July, the company plans to begin to conduct large-scale clinical trials, which typically consist of tens of thousands of people. If those studies are successful, the company hopes to have a vaccine on the market between January and June of next year.
This is really a very first important step in the journey towards having a vaccine available for the people who need it the most.
As researchers work at lightning-fast speeds, medical experts caution it may be some time before a COVID-19 vaccine is perfected.
If you are going to work out a perfect vaccine, it will take years and years.
Most U.S. states reported a drop in new CCP virus cases this past week. Only 13 states saw a rise in infections. Nearly all of them have started to ease restrictions.
The number of CCP virus cases in the United States rose to about 1.5 million on Monday, while total deaths approached 90,000. Most U.S. states reported a drop in new cases. Only 13 states saw a rise in infections compared to the previous week. Tennessee had the biggest weekly increase in cases with a 33% rise, followed by Louisiana with 25% and Texas with 22%. But on the national scale, new virus cases are down 8% in the last week, helped by continued declines in New York and New Jersey. Nearly all 50 U.S. states have allowed some businesses to reopen and residents to move more freely. Kansas and Missouri saw the biggest decline in new cases, after an outbreak at a St. Joseph, Missouri meatpacking plant resulted in over 400 cases in the first week of May. St. Joseph sits on the Kansas-Missouri border, just north of Kansas City. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recommends that states wait for their daily numbers of new cases to fall for 14 days before easing social distancing restrictions. 13 states meet that criteria so far, down from 14 states a week earlier. Georgia, one of the first states to reopen, saw new cases fall 12% in the past week, and now reports 2 consecutive weeks of declining cases.
New York City may start reopening in the near future if the city meets all state indicators. Western New York will start reopening tomorrow, making it the 6th region in the state to do so.
New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio said on Monday he thinks that the city could start to reopen in the first half of June. In order for this to happen, 7 indicators have to be met. As of now, the city only meets 3 of those 7. New York City beaches will open up soon, but the city is getting fences ready which can block the access point to the beaches. The fences will be set up if people don't follow the rules. Beaches will only be open for people to take walks. Swimming will be prohibited as there won't be any lifeguards. New York State Governor Andrew Cuomo said he has encouraged professional sports teams to plan reopenings. Games would have to be played without fans, but could be televised. Western New York, which is where the Niagara Falls are located, will be the 6th region in the state to reopen starting Tuesday.
Some small business owners are in a dilemma about whether or not to reopen right now. New Jersey and New York are still largely shut down, and owners there are saying even their loans aren't enough to keep them from going under. NTD's Melina Weiskup talked to one gym owner in New Jersey who says he's willing to face the consequences of reopening if he has to.
You know, we all stand in this together. This is not...
Gym owner Kyle Newell says he is taking a stance by reopening his gym on Monday. New Jersey is one of the few states in the nation with an extended lockdown. And Newell says at this point, the lockdown is unwarranted.
With liberty and justice for all.
It's not right, in my opinion. We have our freedoms. You know, that's what, and if people choose to stay in, that's their right. If people want to get back out and face this, that is their right as well.
New Jersey is the second hardest hit in the nation, and over the past couple of weeks, the hospitalization rate has gone down. While the governor's taking a slower approach to reopening, Newell says he can't keep waiting, even with the small business loan. He says it's not enough to support both his business and his family.
If it goes on too much longer, there's not going to be a business to come back to anyhow. So at this point, it's full speed ahead and take the consequences as they come.
Small business owners in New York City are taking risks too. A number of businesses deemed non-essential are reopening in order to stay afloat. Most business owners are hesitant to admit they are opening, out of fear of the consequences. Many say they are closed, even though all signs point to being open. And lately, more and more people are coming out.
As long as they do it gradually, it can't happen from one day to the next. But I feel it's okay.
New York has been the hardest hit state by the virus, but those numbers have been decreasing in recent weeks. It seems like there are more people out on the streets than usual, and from the looks of it, these New Yorkers are ready to get back to their normal way of life. Melina Weiskup, NTD News, New York.
In Europe, France and Germany say they'll ask the EU to create a recovery fund worth over $500 billion. And the UK expands its testing for the virus to include kids with symptoms.
France and Germany agreed on Monday to propose creating a recovery fund worth over $500 billion. The fund would offer grants to European member states and regions hit hardest by the virus crisis. The EU may give a green light soon for sales of the drug remdesivir as a treatment against the virus. The drug is made by U.S. pharmaceutical company Gilead. Britain expanded its testing strategy to allow anyone over 5 years old with virus symptoms to book a test. The government also recruited 21,000 people to work on a tracing system. They want to find people who've had contact with those who tested positive. Brazil's President Jair Bolsonaro joined his supporters in protests against lockdown rules. Brazil's public health officials think that quarantines and social distancing are still needed, but Bolsonaro wants to get the economy going again.
Up next, Chinese authorities confirm Wuhan officials lied about the initial virus outbreak for the first time. Find out more when we return.
"90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. They're not out to tell you the truth of what's happening. They're out to tell you the picture of the world that they represent. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in facts, and prevent people from being misled. This is a battle between truth and deceit. Subscribe today and join the Americans who are seeking truth and tradition. We'd love to have you on board."
Viewers have described China Uncensored like The Daily Show, but about China.
At the beginning, I was super excited when I got 500 views, and now the show's grown to about 500,000 subscribers on YouTube. One episode reached 7.9 million people. I'm a little freaked out that many people have seen my face. In 5 years, I see China Uncensored as the sole source of edutainment worldwide.
The Chinese regime is coming under more and more pressure over the virus outbreak. Now, for the first time, a Chinese medical expert reveals the cover-up. NTD's Tiffany Meyer brings us more.
Chinese authorities have admitted for the first time that local authorities in Wuhan lied about the outbreak. Dr. Zhong Nanshan, the CCP senior medical advisor, confirmed in an interview with CNN on Saturday that Wuhan authorities had, quote, suppressed key details about the magnitude of the initial outbreak. Dr. Zhong didn't mention if the central government in Beijing also lied. But internal documents obtained by NTD show that all levels of the Chinese regime were involved in hiding the truth from the public and still are. The central government ordered provinces to conduct secret training and adopt prevention and control programs as early as January 15th, 5 days before they admitted human-to-human transmission. It was actually Dr. Zhong who admitted human-to-human transmission on January 20th. 7 days earlier, Taiwanese experts confirmed to their own government that the virus was contagious after visiting a Wuhan hospital. A March 2nd report from state media Xinhua shows Dr. Zhong's ties to the Chinese Communist Party. The report says he, as a party member of 50 years, was chosen to read the oath at a Chinese Communist Party initiation ceremony for new members. The oath read, support the party's program, abide by the party's rules, keep the party's secrets, fight for communism for one's whole life, be ready to sacrifice everything for the party and the people, and never betray the party. May 18th is the 7th day of the CCP's mass testing initiative in Wuhan. 11 million people are supposed to be tested within 10 days, more than 1 million per day. Last week, residents told us that medical staff didn't change their disposable gloves between patients, raising concerns about cross-infection. Now, a video has gone viral showing swabs taken from around 20 people are all put together in one small bottle, and the specimens aren't even labeled with people's names. Many complain that it's senseless to line up for hours for this so-called test. One netizen said this kind of madness is quite common under the CCP's rule. They say even the U.S. is incapable of testing 11 million people in 10 days, let alone China. Even though the decision is irrational and irresponsible since the central government made it, the Chinese people are forced to follow along. Adding that Chinese test kits only have a 30% accuracy rate, like many countries have complained about after receiving them, so they'd be better off flipping a coin. Last week, a hospital in a northeastern Chinese city was closed due to the outbreak. No patients are being admitted. Now, a hospital in another northeastern city is also refusing all patients except outpatients. But everyone must be tested before entering. There was a confirmed case officially reported at this hospital on May 15th.
And today, reiterating its calls for religious freedom, the State Department demanded that the CCP disclose the whereabouts of the Dalai Lama's successor. 25 years ago, the then 6-year-old Panchen Lama was kidnapped by the Chinese regime. The role is an important figure in Tibetan Buddhism, and he's traditionally selected by the Dalai Lama himself. After the CCP kidnapped the boy, they installed one of their own into the religious position. To recognize the years that have passed since the boy's disappearance, the State Department is today calling for his whereabouts in the name of religious freedom. The department wrote that it prioritizes protecting that freedom, especially in China, where people of faith experience severe repression and discrimination. And Hong Kong's legislature plunged into chaotic scuffles for a second time this month today. The dispute is over a bill that would criminalize those who are deemed to be disrespecting the Chinese national anthem by sitting down or turning their back.
Pro-democracy legislators charged at security guards surrounding a pro-Beijing lawmaker who had taken the chairman's seat in the meeting. It's the second time in 10 days that legislators have pushed and shoved each other over the procedures of electing a chairperson.
The reality in Hong Kong today is that whenever Beijing, whenever Carrie Lam and the pro-establishment don't like something, they will do whatever it takes, including breaking the system that we have, the rules that we have.
The House committee has built up a backlog after failing to elect a chairperson since last year. The backlog includes the China National Anthem bill. Hong Kong politician Nathan Law said in the public hearing that the China National Anthem bill does not protect the people of Hong Kong.
Such a law is not to protect people's freedom, but the brutal regime that constantly exploits its own people. The so-called protecting the symbol of the nation is actually to protect the self-esteem of the Chinese communist regime.
Last May, scuffles broke out in the legislature over a proposed extradition bill. If passed, it could have seen people stand trial in courts in mainland China. The bill sparked months of pro-democracy protests in Hong Kong and was later scrapped. The China National Anthem bill is expected to be given a second reading on May 27th, despite the procedural chaos. Protesters have been calling on social media for citywide demonstrations on that day.
Coming up, an Atlas V rocket successfully lifts off. Find out what unique and secretive spacecraft it's carrying after the break.
How do we get to this point? Back in December, the coronavirus was already spreading in Wuhan, and the Chinese Communist Party was covering it up and punishing the whistleblowers who dared to report the truth. Their actions led to this pandemic, which now has us, in America, stuck in our homes and losing our jobs. To this very day, the Communist Party is still lying, making it more critical than ever for us to get honest reporting about China. The Epoch Times is able to bring you the uncensored truth because we maintain a network of underground sources inside of China, hidden from the censors of the communist government. For instance, our investigative team has been contacting individual funeral homes, hospitals, and they've obtained leaked internal documents which show that China's official numbers are massively underreported by a factor of at least 10. If you're looking for an honest source of news that can keep you informed and safe, check out The Epoch Times. Go to readepoch.com and try your first month for just $1 and get real journalism delivered straight to your doorstep.
The United Launch Alliance's Atlas V rocket successfully lifted off from Cape Canaveral, Florida on Sunday. It's carrying the U.S. SF-7 mission for the U.S. Space Force and U.S. Air Force into orbit.
4, 3, 2,
The launch was originally planned for Saturday morning, but was scrubbed because of poor weather conditions. Sunday's launch was in honor of all frontline workers and first responders while paying tribute to those affected by the pandemic. The U.S. Space Force launched its secretive X-37B orbital test vehicle atop the rocket, as well as a small satellite developed by the U.S. Air Force Academy. The X-37B is a classified program, but Senior Vice President of the Space and Launch Division of Boeing Defense, Space and Security, Jim Chilton, shared some insights into its machine.
Well, X-37B is a really interesting machine. It's a reusable spacecraft. It is autonomous. It flies without crew. It can be rapidly reconfigured to host a wide variety of experiments, and it can take off from standard launch pads in standard rockets under fairings, and it can land autonomously through public airspace.
The X-37B, also known as Orbital Test Vehicle, or OTV, resembles a miniature space shuttle. The military craft will have a new service module on the aft end to host more experiments than any prior missions.
In our business roundup, markets rally on positive vaccine news. Progress is made with US-UK trade negotiations, and JCPenney is to close over 200 stores.
U.S. markets rallied today on news of biotech company Moderna's vaccine progress. The Dow Jones was up almost 4%, S&P up over 3%, and the Nasdaq up around 2.5%. Markets have been particularly sensitive to vaccine news. Investors are waiting desperately for lockdowns to lift and the economy to restart. The U.S. and the U.K. have just finished a first round of trade deal negotiations. Both sides are hopeful that a free trade agreement can be put in place as soon as possible to soften the pandemic's economic blow. The next round is scheduled for the week of June 15th to the 22nd. JCPenney will shut almost a third of its stores. It will focus on its most profitable locations and its online offerings. The news comes just days after the 100-year-old company filed for bankruptcy. It operates around 850 stores in the United States and Puerto Rico. Uber is cutting another 3,000 jobs and closing more than 3 dozen offices as it tries to navigate the pandemic. It's also reducing investment in several non-core projects, instead focusing on ride-sharing and food delivery. It's currently in talks to buy rival Grubhub.
Still to come, basketball legend Michael Jordan's autographed sneakers exceed expectations at auction. See how much they sold for after the break. A pair of Nike sneakers from Michael Jordan's rookie season has sold in an online auction. The NBA great's shoes fetched a record price.
NBA legend Michael Jordan's first ever Air Jordan sneakers have fetched a record $560,000 in an online auction. Auction house Sotheby's said on Sunday the game-worn autographed sneakers from Jordan's rookie season were expected to sell for between $100,000 and $150,000. The auction coincided with the 35th anniversary of the Air Jordan brand and the screening of the 10-part ESPN documentary The Last Dance about Jordan's legendary run with the Chicago Bulls. Like most of Jordan's basketball shoes, the Air Jordan 1s, designed for him in 1985, are a mismatched pair in size 13 and 13.5. They were sold by collector Jordan Geller, the founder of the sneaker museum Shoeseum in Las Vegas. Sotheby's e-commerce director Bram Wachter said the record sale shows, quote, not only the incredible appeal of Michael Jordan, but also that sneaker collecting is truly a global and growing market. Known for selling multi-million-dollar art, Sotheby's held its first auction dedicated entirely to sneakers last year. It set a then world record sale of over $437,000 for a pair of 1972 Nike running shoes known as the Moon Shoe.
And that's all for today's news. Thanks for tuning in.